Good evening. I'm audible, I'm visible. Yes. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Audible, visible, no issues. Perfect. We'll wait for 2-3 minutes and then we'll begin. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening. Perfect, Pranay. How much time did it take you to make that table? Half an hour maximum. Good evening, good evening. We'll wait 2-3 minutes and then we'll begin. Good evening. I told you half an hour of basic concentrated table making and your work will be done. For half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. It's worth the effort. It was the effort. It took you 2 hours, no issue. Worth the effort. Worth the effort. It's about how you made it. Your must be more elaborate or much more use of multiple colors or all. But I hope that you were able to understand why I asked you to do it. Because most of you would most probably have learned half of it by just writing it. By writing it. Right? Perfect then. Good evening. We are entering a very important zone of Indian history now. And we'll cross over into 1857 tomorrow. And our first part of the story will be clear and will be over. I'll see it. Any I've not got a chance to check it. I will see it. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Yashoda, you can rely on that. Pro means you are inclined towards that, people. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. By writing, you will learn these names. I know that is a standard process which you will see. But if you have one trick, if there's any one trick to ever remember anything, it is that you write it down and you will always remember it. Pavaruli, firstly, welcome. Don't have to worry. All these classes will be repeated 5 times more. So just note that you are with me in tribal and peasant. Before that, you can just repeat with me, right? I am saying, Praveen, either you have muted your screen or just refresh once. But now the irony of the story is if you're not able to listen to me, then how do I tell you that you need to refresh? So refresh. Pritam, if you gone through the NCRTs? I refreshed. So refresh again. It should, or there's a option for what is called fix audio. Fix audio. Then you do one thing, Pritam, you slowly start with the first PPTs. Chronology isn't, Labdhi. Chronology, if you will start to add chronology to the story, it will become unbearable, literally unbearable. Too much data. So keep it simple with regards to that. Keep it simple with regards to that. Good evening. Good evening. We'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll start. Socialist reform movement, peasant, tribal, these are not in NCRTs. That is the biggest problem. You have to rely here with that. Shalu, Tagore did not criticize the Vedas. He made Vedas infallible, which is sacrosanct. Mohammed, you can do that. Can I now begin for the discussion for today? Everybody's here. Can we do that? Ravindra, it takes 4 to 5 days. That is a standard process. You will get it. Aishwarya, just make sure that you first concentrate in class. Don't have to worry about anything. You will get the chance to repeat whatever has happened next 5 times. We will repeat each and everything. You go through the PPTs. Any issue, you email me. You just ask the SME for the email ID. They will share it with you. I'm not writing anything. Infallible means sacrosanct, holy. Now, today we start a very interesting aspect of modern India, which is called resistance to rule. Your resistance to rule. And we have slowly but surely come a long way in this story. We've come a long way in this story. And tomorrow we will reach the halfway point. But just to tell you that what this story generally is, I'll just give you a very simple taste of it. That we started in 1765. We started in 1765. Anybody who is new, please pay attention. We started in 1765. And therein we not even started in 1765. We started in 1613 with the first farman given to the East India Company. Then we went to 1765, Diwani rights coming through. Then we discussed 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853, and then 1857. 1857 is seen as a cutoff point. 1857 is seen as a cutoff point. Our story started even before that, 1488, when Diaz reaches the Cape of Good Hope. We've been doing a lot of things. In this, we discussed Advent. We have now discussed the European presence. Thereafter, we saw their expansion of the British Raj in India. We have now done all the wars. We have also understood now education. We've discussed the judiciary. And we have also discussed the transport policy. But the most important we've discussed is economic exploitation. We have been going through a lot. If you have realized this, we have very systematically discussed the constitutional development, each and every building block of the British in India, from Mughal decline to their advent, to their expansion, to their consolidation, to their playing with the social. We finally also have an understanding of how all of this was happening in the context of economic exploitation. So I hope you are able to understand where you are in the story, And we now will transition to a major period with regards to the constitutional, or what we call as crown period. What do I mean by this? That basically tomorrow I will end Company Raj. With you. We'll do some previous year questions. And thereafter, the real story will start. Do you want a glimpse of the real story, what we are actually going to discuss in the next 2 weeks then? Very good. So, if you want a glimpse, let me give you a glimpse. What we will be doing is, for example, we'll start at 1885, then we'll go to 1891, in between 1862. So, we'll actually start with the Government of Act 1858, then 1862, then 1885, 1969. Wait, let me write it down also, it will make sense. Wait. 1858, 1861, 1885, 1892, 1905, Thereafter 1919, in between not even 1919. Before that 1915, 1919, 1920 to 22, 1927, 1929, thereafter 1931, 1935, thereafter 1936, 1938, 1940, 1942, 1945, 1947. Just to give you a basic example of this. In between, you will have, for example, we'll discuss the concept of Government of India Act. Then we'll discuss Indian Council Acts. Indian Council Acts. We will discuss the INC formation, the safety valve theory. Thereafter, we'll go to Indian Council Act again. 1905 Swadeshi movement. Then advent of Gandhi. Thereafter, Gandhi will come in 1915. Change Rowlatt. Thereafter, non-cooperation movement. Thereafter, we have Simon Commission. We'll then talk about Bhagat Singh and what we call as revolutionary activities. Thereafter, 1929, equally important, Purna Swaraj. We'll discuss the roundtable conferences in between this. Then we'll discuss the concept of CDM. We will discuss Delhi Manifesto, a lot of things. Then Government of India Act. Then 1936 will be the elections for the first time, which will happen in India. By 1938, there was a conflict between Bose and Gandhi. By 40, we will get the first offer, which is August offer. Once we get the August offer, we are getting the Cripps mission. The Cripps mission then will be followed by the Cabinet mission. Cabinet mission in 1945-46, in between Wavell plan, and then we will get independence. So basically, the real part of the story is actually left. You add and sprinkle Lucknow Pact, you add split, you add the concept of Muslim League, you add the concept of the Nehru report, Jinnah 14 points. The basic point of the matter is that we have not even touched the major portion. All has been about creating the structure which is there. We'll discuss Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhi. The basic point of the matter is that Indian history, modern India, will now get into gear and will now become what you really know as the national movement. Are you getting my point? That we have just covered a very small portion by this point of time. We have just established everything, and now we will go for the national movement. And the stepping stone into this, 1875. What happened in 1875? 1875? What, Savani, why didn't you write 1875? What is 1875? Now, the basic point is the stepping stone. The stepping stone is something 1857. Yes, 1857 is here. The stepping stone is this theme itself. So if everybody is here, everybody understands that we are now entering a very important zone, which is resistance. Then the ultimate resistance is going to be nationalism. So can we now start a discussion? Mangal Pandey, part of 1857 itself. He's not even the larger story. It's Meerut which is more important than Barrackpur. Okay. Now, the first type of question which can come from this area, which is called resistance to Raj, is that why did resistance actually develop? And what forms it took? So now you will pay attention to me. There's set of factual data. You know what to do with it. What will you do with the factual data? What are you going to do with that? You will put it into tables. Perfect. But you also need to understand the larger understanding. Resistance means how they wanted to fight back. Now, when we talk about resistance to Raj, the concept of fighting back, this resistance took a lot of forms. And the three major forms it will take will be general rebellions, where there's generally a rebellion, people rebel. Then you have two subtypes which are called peasant movements and tribal movements. Basically, all three are forms of resistance, and the ultimate resistance is going to be tomorrow, which we will see in the form of 1857. In the form of 1857. That is the ultimate resistance, but this is the early form. This is the early form. This was happening all across Indian politics, modern Indian history, but they had their own limitations and problems. So if you understand that there are basically three branches, can Adivasi revolt is technically tribal movement, can we discuss what was their emphasis and what is their limitation generically before going into sannyasi, fakir movement or Rampa and all? What is their basic understanding? So when we talk about rebellions, the reason, these are not specific to any class or any group. They're just rebellions. The reason is mostly colonial policy or control or structures which take away or control something. So I'll give you a very simple example. For example, you have what is called the sannyasi revolt. So the sannyasi rebellion, first rebellion in India. But why did the sannyasi rebellion happen? The sannyasi rebellion happened because of the fact that the sannyasis like to move around. You would have seen sannyasi, the monks, the different type of the babas which move around, and you see, do babas stay at one place? Do sannyasis stay at one place? No. So they like to move around. They move from one ghat to the other, move from one place to the other. But the British feared them quite a lot. The British were very, very fearful that they would be the people who will understand what is happening in colonial India. And they did also understand it. And this mobility is something which is inherent to the sannyasis, is what the British targeted. The British wanted to stop their movement. And when they will stop their movement, the sannyasis will resist and rebel when stopped. But there's a problem. The problem is that they only are rejecting the policy or the method of control, not the British. Now try to understand this. They are not saying that the Britishers are bad. They are not saying that the Britishers are bad. They're saying that your policy is bad. Your policy is bad. You are not bad. Your policy is bad, but you are not bad. Now, you look at, for example, are you getting my point? I'll elaborate on this concept of not the Britisher. These are called generic. Ones, rebellions. People rebel, they start to fight with the British. They don't like it because of the colonial policy. Which is that, for example, sannyasis, generic means that there is no specific group there. They're not peasants, they're not tribals, they're just random people rebelling. And when random people are rebelling, they are rebelling against either policy or control. So either they're rebelling against the policy of not allowing them to cross over, or they're trying to control them. But the basic point here needs to be clear is that they are not happy with the policy, but they are not questioning the British. They are not questioning the British. Are you able to understand this? Please understand this. See, I'll first expand on this. For example, you have peasants. The peasant movements in India. Why would the peasant rebel? The peasant would rebel because of the land revenue settlement. The peasant would rebel because of the commercialization. He would rebel because of deindustrialization. He would rebel because of the drain, the poverty, the stress. And basically for them, all of this was just either zamindars or were money lenders or were British officers. Now, when the peasant will rebel, he will rebel against them, not the British. Are you understanding this fact that they all are going after the branches of colonialism, not the basic trunk, which is colonialism? In India, there is one major tree, and that tree is basically British colonialism and their exploitation. However, what they do is this is manifested in lot of branches. For example, police, zamindar, moneylender, policy, the concept of planter, officer. And when the peasant, the tribal, or the rebellions are going to happen, they want to cut these. But none target the main root cause. This topic you will not find in any book, Pritam. That's the issue. NCERTs don't cover this. Are you getting my point? That they are targeting the agents of colonialism and not colonialism itself. Not colonialism itself. Which is that the root cause. You tell me, if I cut any of these branches, will the trunk get affected? Will the trunk get affected? No. They will cut off these branches and the branch will again come out. Please concentrate in class. PPTs are elaborate enough to not go to any book. Don't worry about a book. Concentrate here. Even in the book, this will not be written. Be it Spectrum, be it Bipin Chandra, be it any book. Concentrate. You need to understand the underlying policy. The simple point is, and I will give you a table here, don't worry. The peasants don't like these policies, but for them, the face of colonialism is zamindar, moneylender, and British officer. For them, the face of colonialism is the officer. But the basic point of the matter is, by removing a zamindar, by removing a moneylender, by removing an officer, do they end British rule? Do they end British rule in India? No. So basically the early, why do we call them peasant and tribal movements, and why do we not call them nationalism? is because they don't understand what they're doing. As soon as the British will come and say, okay, we will take care of you, then they will stop rebelling only. This is a major point you need to understand. Again, I'm repeating myself that basically they are targeting the branches of colonialism. My exploitation is because of the zamindar. But who made the zamindar so powerful? Who made the zamindar so powerful? Who made it? The British did. So who needs to end? The British or the zamindar? The British. This is what is called the weakness of all these rebellions. This is called short-sightedness or myopic vision. Myopic vision. That you only see the mask, you don't see the real person. So peasant, tribal or rebellion. If you give me an opportunity, I'll make a good table here with regards to their reasons and their weaknesses. Weakness of all of them is the same. Simple point. An agent of colonialism will never end colonialism. You have to target the British, not the agents who are there. All agents are created by the British. They have been given power by the British, but the British are the real root cause. So the branches are cut off, they are being targeted, but the core structure of colonialism does not change. And this is why 1857 was different than all of these. 1857, the Sipahis said, no, it is not the Zamindar who is the problem. The problem is the Britishers who are the problem. You tell me one thing, simple point. I'll give you a very simple example. You give electricity bill. Yes. Now the person who collects the money for the electricity company, he comes to your house and you beat that person up and send him back. Has the core issue been killed or is it still there? You will beat one up, the next one will come. Only when you challenge the electricity company, then only you change anything. So basically, you have to hit the root cause, which none of them do. And that is why I'll show you a type of question which can come, which is that what were the reasons for rebellions? However, what was their major weakness? Their major weakness is that they are very short-sighted, don't understand colonialism itself, and that is not their problem. They actually don't understand that there is a root cause. And this colonialism itself is going to become the problem. And they are very, very, very geographically distant to each other. None of them are connected. So basically, the British is like an octopus. You cut its hand, it will still grow more, but the core body remains the same. So resistance to Raj is firstly limited because they don't have the understanding or the knowledge of how colonialism works. Once they understand, okay, the British operate like this, thereafter they will go after the root cause, and that is going to be, which is technically tomorrow, which is 1857, which is collapse of British rule. They said killing the officer is not the answer. It's about removing the British. So there's a difference between reforming colonialism and removing colonialism. Are you getting my point? Are you able to pick up on these two words? There's a difference between reforming and removing. Reforming means that you still want colonialism, you just want it to be better. Removing means that you want to reject colonialism. So let me make a box for you and you will understand what I mean to say. Resistance to Raj, again, all of this is generic. I'm discussing with you theoretically, then I will go into the rebellions themselves. Resistance to Raj took three forms: rebellions, peasant movement, and tribal movement. The reasons for each of them was different. For them, it was colonial policy, and colonial policy and the control of the British. Now you have peasant movement, which is technically based on land revenue, settlements, zamindari, exploitation, money lenders exploiting, commercialization, the planters and their exploitation. And the tribals again are troubled by zamindars, British agents who enter their territory, the money lenders, and the economic policy of the Raj. Are you now able to contextualize how their grievances are interconnected? The people who are outside the pale of agriculture, tribal people who are in the forests, basically the forest policy of the British, they have what is common to the three. What is common to the three? As much as the reasons are diverse, what is common to the three? What is common to the three is that all were created, or all the exploitation is British. All reasons are based on the presence of British in India. Now the problem with them is will be their weakness. The root cause is British, but their weakness is going to be, and all of them will have the same weakness, is that they did not understand that the root cause of all suffering and exploitation was the British, not its agents. They reject the policies, go after the agents, but do not challenge the British in India. The British in India. All of them have what is called a myopic vision. They are not able to see the larger picture. They are not able to see the larger picture. And what is going to happen is, as soon as their issue is resolved, they will stop the rebellion. As soon as issue is resolved, stop the resistance. And I will show it to you in three. I'll show it to you in three. Deccan Riots, Indigo, and in Pabna. As soon as the British intervene through in act, they will stop. They are geographically limited and not connected. Not connected. What would be it is all classes, all groups, all communities. Well, here it's only peasant and here it's only tribal. So these are isolated events which happen and have no connection with the larger story. Are you able to understand this point? I'll tell you what type of question can come. Sepoy Mutiny is the starting. 1857, wait. Sepoy Mutiny is a story which the British want you to believe. Okay. Now, basically, if I had to give you a question, if I give you a question like this, discuss the reasons for the development of peasant and tribal movements in India. Why did they fail to become larger events? 250 words. Can you write this answer? Yes, you will have to, Shafruddin, not right now. Abhi, first understand the concept. You all know the reasons. Reasons we've been discussing for now close to 10 classes. The reasons are colonialism. However, the problem is that they failed because they are very, very limited. This is one whole question. This is one whole question which needs to be written in 250 words. So you would have to first talk about their reasons in one paragraph or one point, and you would have to talk about their myopic vision. Simple point is, they lack the vision to understand colonialism. This is the first discussion I wanted to have with you. Can you now understand what is the larger context of this theme? You write with them, no issues. Yes, lack of understanding of the larger picture. Can everybody consent to tell me that you understand the theoretical aspect of this theme? Theoretical aspect of the theme. Simple to simple point is, there is 3 different manifestations of resistance to Raj, and simple point is rebellion, peasant and tribal are there. This in turn have their own issues. For some it is colonial policy, for some it is the land revenue zamindari exploitation, for some it is the forest policy itself. Reasons are basically based on British in India. However, the weaknesses are more systemic and more problematic. All of them are just trying to cut the branches of colonialism, not colonialism itself, targeting the agents of colonialism, not colonialism itself. They don't understand that only when this will fall, then only something is going to happen. Is this clear? Vijay, post your question again. Clear? Great. The question is very simple. Discuss the reasons for the development of peasant and tribal movements in India. Why did they fail to become larger events? Please post your question again, Vijay. Just a question saying answer my question. What is the... You want me to write the answer for this question. But that is not the purpose here. I am telling you intro, body, conclusion, 3 parts. Introduction, talk about how the British came to India. Body, there will be two parts. One part is going to discuss reasons. One part is going to discuss the failure. And the conclusion is going to be their myopic vision will be the problem. You write it and send it to islive@byju's.com, and it should not be a problem for you generally. It should not be a problem for you generally. Develop this understanding. Stop looking for model answers. Your writing style needs to develop. Once I come into the national movement, I will discuss the concept of answer writing with you with more examples. But as of right now, I want you to develop the concept. I've told you 3 different parts: intro, body, conclusion, introduction, how they came, 2 parts, and thereafter conclusion. Can we move on? Every time we can't give the same intro. No, don't do that. All questions, same intro. Don't do that. Every question is different, so the intro is different. You write it and try to figure out how to make an intro. There is no set plan. Everybody has their own understanding and everybody has a different style. Learn to first develop your style, then I will shape it. First learn to walk, I will make you run. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now, if this is clear, conclusion means how to conclude the whole concept, that what is the significance or impact of the concept. How many pages can we write? 250 words you have to write in however pages it comes in. Now, this was the theoretical discussion, which is common to all of them, that basically all of them are limited in geography, and are limited in aims, and there is no connection. In every answer, intro, body, conclusion has to be there. So, no connection, limited in aims, and geographically very, very limited. Now, the basic point is, now we need to learn how these movements came through. The simple point, intro and body are included in all 250 words. Everything is 250 words. Intro, conclusion is mostly impact and significance. We had a discussion about this. This is mostly how it started or introduce the topic. This is mostly impact. We'll talk about it. Don't worry. When we'll go forward, I will give you that. Right? Okay. Articles, conjunctions, all counted. Yes, everything, every word you write is counted in 250 words. Okay. 3 pages. See, I said, if you write big, 250 words is going to come in 5 pages. Don't do pages. Your handwriting will dictate how many pages. Now, the purpose of the discussion will be the same. As, see, tell you one thing, simple point. Please, this is the last thing I'm going to say about answer writing. No one has the time in UPSC to count each and every word. But a 250 word answer and a 300 word answer shows that it is over limit. You go to 254, they're not going to come to your house and pick you up for 4 words. However, if you make it 300, it will evidently start to show. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 words is not a problem. But 50, 60 words will show in the examination. So don't have to be paranoid. Right now, if you are preparing for next year, it's about first learning how to write. Then we can consider precising, or what we call as condensing it. Please understand this point. First, learn how to answer a question. Don't start to condense it right now. The time and the words don't matter. It's about how you write which matters. Okay. Now, the discussion we are going to have The format is going to be the same. The format is going to be very simple, that we will make a table. For tribal, I have already made a table, but for this, I wanted to make a table because it's a very limited list. And again, what we did yesterday, you just have to put in the basic concept. There will only be 2 columns now. There will only be 2 columns here. And the basic point is, if you want, you can put 3, but not everywhere there is a rebellion leader. You go for rebellion and you go for reason, personality, and personality. So what we are going to do now is what are called generic rebellions, not peasant movements. Can we discuss generic rebellions, sannyasi, kuka, this and that? Okay. So the first rebellion in India, which lasted for close to 60 years, is called the Sannyasi rebellion. Sannyasis, as I told you, did not like the way the British used to try to control their mobility. But more than that, the more the people became distressed, the more the people went into the larger understanding of taxation, land revenue settlements. People became landless. And when people became landless, they started to join the sannyasis and started to wander around. These fakirs and sannyasis, however, were now such a big group that the British started to fear. And therefore, once the British will try to control their movement, so impoverishment of the peasantry meant that people started to join the sannyasis and fakirs, and the larger number of zamindars and soldiers who started to join in turn led to the company to try to control their movement. I will show you what to do with the table, don't worry. And now, once the company is going to start to do this, the simple point is they all will start to raid factories, start to raid the companies, properties itself. Warren Hastings will try to suppress it. But the most important leaders, Manjum Shah, Chirag Ali, Musa Shah, Bhavani Pathak, and Debi Chandra Chadurain, you remember only one. What you do is that you take this table and you write sannyasi. Thereafter, Majnun Shah, colonial policy to control their movement. You can write this much. Fakir, sannyasi, same thing. So again, the story is going to be condensing the data. So sannyasi, and don't bother with this. Because it will become too much to manage. So sannyasi rebellion happens because the British were trying to control them. And there's one more movement which happens, which is called the Fakir uprising, which is technically same Manjum Shah, now unhappy with colonial rule, will bring in the farmers and zamindars of Bengal also, and the Muslim religious mendicants. Fakirs are basically Muslims, sannyasis is the word used for Hindu sannyasis. But the Fakir uprising brought the sannyasi rebellion, or the sannyasi rebellion gave birth to the Fakir uprising. So very simply, Fakir uprising, Manjnum Shah, Muslim fakirs join the sannyasi rebellion. So basically, you just have to know the basic point. Don't write the dates. It will become too much to manage. Are you getting the purpose of this discussion? I told you these are the only two themes in which there are a lot of facts. The only way to tackle them is to condense them. Can we agree to this? Yes? Very good. We can agree to this. I told you last day of pain. After this, no other topic is like this. And in tribal, I've already done the task for you. Okay. Now comes the Pagalpanthis. This is a semi-religious sect which was created by Karam Shah. His son Tipu Shah will organize a rebellion against zamindars and local agents of the British officers. It had all the Halong tribe, the Garo, Muslims, Hindus, all in the eastern sector. And they will be brutally suppressed by the British authority. Now tell me one thing. Going after zamindars and agents is going after the concept of colonialism or only the branches of colonialism? Only the branches of colonialism. So this is the basic problem here. All of them are exhibiting a major weakness. A major weakness. Simple point. We have done sannyasi, we have done fakir, and now we've done Pagalpanthis. And basically, all three are religiously motivated. They are very not happy about their mobility. They are not happy about the peasant and land-based exploitation. Fakir and sannyasi are the same. Sannyasi is a word used for Hinduistic. Fakir is used for Muslims. So, there is nothing here. Name Tipu Shah, Majnun Shah for both of them. Let's do one thing. I'll do one more thing, which is that I'll make a repository for you. Can I do that? So that we have one place, everything together. Can we do that as we do it? Okay, very good. So let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Fakir, the sannyasi rebellion, Fakir, Pagalpanthi. Tell me the name of the leader for sannyasi Fakir. What is their issue? Colonial mobility laws. Colonial mobility laws. And Tipu Shah is basically peasant exploitation and zamindar and local agents were the target. Now, is this difficult to do? This is what I'm asking you to do. 4 words I've written. 4 words I've written. This is only what you need to learn. That is it. That is it. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. Don't get overwhelmed. Once you systematically put it into boxes or like this, it becomes very, very easy. Semi-religious means that they're a religious group also, but they're also peasant group in this sector. Okay, now it's just facts. That is the problem. I can teach you the theory here, but facts are facts. Now, Pagalpanthis. The next major rebellion is called the Mopla or the Malabari rebellion. Now, who are the Moplas? The Mopla or the Moplas are basically a Muslim community in the Malabar, the Kerala sector. And they were technically descendants of Muslim Arab traders. So the traders who were coming from Arabia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, the whole Iran-Iraq sector, they started to settle down, and therefore they had a major community, the Mopla Muslims, in the Malabar sector. And over a period of time, Pagalpanthi is not a peasant revolt because everybody came together, not just peasants. The Malabari rebellion, you need to understand this, started to gain a lot of land. And basically, Moplas had become equivalent to landlords, had multiple Hindu, Muslim, etc. peasantry under them. Now tell me one thing, in Malabar, in this sector, which land revenue settlement was applied? Same, Khandija, same thing. What land revenue settlement was applied? Very good. Rayatwari. If I correctly remember, Rayatwari is going to favor the landlord or the peasant? It's going to favor the peasant. So what the Rayatwari system does is, it reduces the Moplas to tenants, and these peasantry become more powerful and get land. Basically, the British system will reduce the Mopla Muslims to basically tenants or leaseholders, and their large estates will be divided into the peasantry. And with illegal cesses, the over-assessment, and the suspected pro-landlord attitude of the state, which never came about, because the Moplas were said that don't worry, we will help you, don't worry, we will help you. The Moplas will now start to rebel, saying that what is this? What is this? See, understand one thing. What am I doing here? I am teaching you, before 1857, there's a whole story of people resisting. I've been telling you that the British were exploiting us. The British exploited us. They changed our education policy. They started socialist reform movement. But you never asked me this very simple question, sir. Why did people resist? And the answer to this question is here in front of you. Yes, people resisted. And it manifested itself in multiple forms. And that is these rebellions. Are you getting my point? What is the purpose of this discussion? These are moments of resistance to Raj. Throughout the period between 1613 to 1857, there's a whole story of resistance. And that story I have collated together and I'm giving it to you right now. People, as soon as the British started to exploit India, did resist. But we did not discuss them till this point. All of these are happening together. Please understand this. British expansion, exploitation, their social reform, and their education policy, their economic policy, all are happening together between 1613 and 1857. I am just adding one more dimension to the story, that people were resisting also, resisting the British during this period, and that is going to start with the sannyasis. The sannyasis. And it will culminate in the revolt of 1857. Most of them fall under this basic category. Some of them are outside also. Some of them go till 1900 also. But are you now getting the point? These are the dimensions of rule. Nobody asked me when I was teaching this that why is that people are not resisting. And the basic point is people were resisting. Now I'm showing you how they were resisting. Are you getting the point of this concept? Because I'm not blindly teaching you events. All of them are linked to larger colonialism. And that is the point of this discussion. But what is common to all of them is, you tell me. What is common to all of them till 1857? These rebellions will go on till 1947. What is common to them is that they were exploited by the British, but they never understood that it was the British who are the problem, not the other. It is not this which is the problem. The problem is that the British exist in India, so we need to remove the British. They never targeted colonialism, they only targeted the branches of colonialism. Therefore, why is that in 1857 we didn't get independence? I'll say it in this way. Why is that these events are isolated events? Why did not the Moplas give us independence? Because they never understood what was happening. Are we now on the same page? Because I can't pointlessly go on with these rebellions and you don't understand why are we discussing them. These are moments in which people had enough, but the problem was there was no unity, there was no connection, there was no vision. Okay. So Moplas, now listen to me, is a community. Don't have to complicate it. We don't have to become a thesis, or we don't have to write a thesis on the Moplas. Mapilas, Moplas, Malabari rebellion, same thing. And you can see it's happening for a very long time, close to 100 years. This community was a landlord type community in this area because of their very, very long history in this sector. Rayatwari comes in this area, totally takes away their right because Rayatwari does not recognize zamindars. Therefore, the peasants became very, very powerful. And in turn, the Moplas will have 22 rebellions against the British. Every time the British will suppress, but this similar problem is going to be there. The Moplas will rise, the British will suppress, the Moplas will rise, the British will suppress, the Moplas will rise, British will suppress. Simple point is, in my story, I only have to add one more entry into this concept. I only have to add one more entry, which is Mopala. There is no specific leader, and the target was British colonial economic policy. Basic grievance is what we call as displacement out of land and land rights. Are you now able to get the basic idea here? If you start to go into chronological order, then it will become such a big hodgepodge. I have rather divided them into their nature. Rebellion, peasant, tribal. You put them onto a timeline. There is already enough timelines I need to give you. Stop complicating easy topics. My job for the previous module and this module was take these facts, learn them, and then forget them. That is it. You cannot literally learn each one of them. You have to go for a limited set of number of facts. Learn them, and if they come in the examination, good. They won't, no issue. But I will rather concentrate on where the questions are coming from. I will show you tomorrow all this for nothing. All this for nothing at all. One question, two questions will come in the past 10 years. So we need to understand that the purpose of this discussion is to reach 1857, because then only I can talk about nationalism. Are we clear with regards to our strategy, how we are covering modern India? because we need to be on the same page. Great. Perfect. Now, Bhopla done. Now the next is called Kuka. Kuka we did yesterday itself. Also called the Namdharis, Sikhism. Started as a religious purification sect of Sikhism, basically a revivalist. Wore white and hand-woven clothes. They boycotted British goods and products. And the main leader is Ram Singh, who aimed restoring Sikh rule in Punjab. And he was later captured and sent to Rangoon, which is Burma. Simple to simple point is, they were humiliated by the British. So it was about revenge. It was about revenge. So in my story, 5, Kuka, Ram Singh, revenge for Sikh humiliation in Anglo-Sikh wars. Any issue with regards to Burma is Myanmar. With regards to these 5, everybody is with me. Sit there, relax, enjoy it. Don't note anything down. I'm literally making notes for you. So rather concentrate and just absorb what I'm saying. Look at the way I'm condensing information. This is called notes making. This is what you pick up. Now, the next most important moment is called the Vellore Mutiny. Now, please understand this. What is the concept of mutiny? Mutiny. You understand? Perfect, Preetham. Great. Now, what is the mutiny? When the army rebels, it is called a mutiny. Mutiny is a very specific military term. You will do 2-3 mutinies with me. First this one, then 1857, and then what is called the RIN mutiny, the Royal Indian Navy mutiny, 1945-46. Now, people tend to believe that the army only revolted for the first time in 1857. However, in 1806 itself, in Vellore, which is technically Karnataka, Tamil, this whole sector, southern sector, there was what is called the Vellore Mutiny, in which the British were trying to make the soldiers remove their caste markers, meaning make them take off their turban or their important chains or markers of their religion, were making them accept things which were not accepted within their religion. And in 1806 itself, close to 51 years before the 1857 rebellion, there was a rebellion, or we call as a Vellore mutiny in South India. And the British brutally crushed the Vellore mutiny. Brutally. Everybody who had mutinied was shot. Literally, they used to tie the people to the cannon and they used to blow up the people with the cannon. That was the level of brutality the British were ready to do. And that is why when people say that in 1857, South India didn't do anything, South India did something when nobody did anything. And the way the British now changed the military culture in Madras Presidency, in Madras sector, was that no mutiny was ever possible thereafter. So when we will talk about the limited geographical limit of 1857, which is a very North Indian thing, the problem was that the Vellore Mutiny, where John Cadwick and Bentinck introduced the European turban and did not allow people to wear earrings and caste markers, this racial discrimination led to the rebels unfurling Tipu Sultan's flag and saying that our new leader is Tipu Sultan's son, Futeh Haider. However, it was brutally crushed by Colonel Gillespie. Brutally crushed. Ironically, you tell me one thing. The 1857 rebellion or the mutiny Sapahis, who did they go to? Who did they go to? They went to Bahadur Shah Zafar, a Mughal. They said, you are our leader, take us forward. Now, isn't this technically the precursor of the same thing which happened in South India? There it is Tipu Sultan's son, there it is the Mughal. So basically the revolt of 1857 had already happened in a way in South, and thereafter there was never any scope to do that. So people tend to forget that the Vellore Mutiny is the first mutiny in India, not 1857. So in our story, Vellore Mutiny, no specific thing. Mutiny in Vellore over social discrimination and removal of caste and religious markers. Vellore Mutiny clear? Already crushed. Perfect. Why did they declare Tipu Sultan's son? Because in their notion, their leader was Tipu Sultan. So his son is going to be the next successor. Can we move on? Last one, Veluthampi, and then we go to peasant. Very good. Now, Veluthampi was the Diwan. Diwan means what? Revise with me. Diwan means what? Diwan is whom? Very good. The finance minister. So the Diwan of the Kingdom of Travancore, under subsidiary alliance, the kingdom went into a lot of burden, and he will then rebel against the British. But when the British will try to capture him, he will martyr himself so that the British could not capture him in 1809. Now, if you remember, one of you asked me a question, sir. Why didn't people resist subsidiary alliance? Why didn't people resist subsidiary alliance? Here is the story of a finance minister who resists subsidiary alliance, and you see the fate of that story. That is why the British had become so powerful by this point of time that even people rebelling against subsidiary alliance had no chance. So in this 7, Veluthampi, it is, his name is Veluthampi only, Veluthampi. It is rebelling against the subsidiary alliance of Travancore. Now guess, did the southern states, the Nizam or others, help Veluthampi? Yes or no? Manjum, same. No. Standard disunity. You took the subsidiary alliance. You pay for it. Why should we pay for it? Why should we pay for it? Now, Veluthampi, clear? The Paika rebellion, 1817. This was in the news also. Paika were the service or the bureaucracy or officers within the Gajapati rulers. These are local rulers of the Deccan South sector. And basically, they were entitled that their service to the state, the Gajapati rulers, is going to be paid via land, which is rent free. Basically, the officer gets a land, and the land has some revenue that is equal to his salary. And the state or the ruler will forgo his tax. Therefore, imagine that there was a moment that you were the DM of Agra. The government of India becomes bankrupt. So the government of India says that your salary is going to be the revenue of Agra. So basically, and we will not take anything from you. Basically, this is the equivalent to this, which is that the revenue equals to the salary and they forgoed their tax. Now tell me one thing, if the British government are going to come, will they allow this type of concept? Yes, it's technically Jagirdari. Exactly like Jagirdari. No. So when the company came, they said revenue policy and asked the Paikas to pay. And now the military chief of this kingdom, Bakshi Jagabandhu Vidyadhar, will now lead this rebellion against the British. Again, short-lived, but is considered an important rebellion in this sector. So, Paika rebellion, Jagbandhu Vidyadhar, their tax-free land was taken away and had to pay tax. Paika. Thereafter, Ramosi. Ramosis are again lower ranking officers in the Maratha army and police. Leader is Chittur Singh. Again, standard concept, land revenue and harsh collecting methods. They will rise in 1825-26 under the banner of Umaji because there will be a major famine in Pune sector. And thereafter, the British government is going to offer them land grants and recruit them into the hill police. You tell me what is going to happen after this. They will basically abandon their cause. So they rebelled against policy. The British appeased and they stopped. So once the British integrated them into colonialism, they stopped. And this is the reason why all of them have the same issue. So 9th, Ramosi rebellion. You have Chittur Singh. Harsh revenue collection methods. In turn, rebelled, integrated into colonial state. Now, this is the story of peasant rebellion. This is the story of rebellions. There are others also which happened all across India in different parts, from the Chenchus to the Tana Bhagat to the Naikadus to the Gatkari to the Kittur. We don't have to remember. Do not remember. But what I want from you very simply is that you remember this list. Can you remember this list? Himalaya, don't put them in chronological order. It will create a big mess. Such a big mess, it will be very, very hard to manage. I am the first person to put things into chronology. Which I'm asking you not to put it, there's a reason for that. Simple point is, sannyasis, colonial mobility policies, not they, what they not did not like. Manjum and Majnum, same person, colonial mobility. Pagalpanthis, Tipu Shah, they did not like the colonial exploitation. Moplas, again, they were reduced to tenants, so they did not like it. Kukas did not like how the Sikhs were humiliated. Vellore mutiny is when they took away their religious and caste markers. Velu Thampi rebelled against the subsidiary alliance of Travancore when the British started to annex under subsidiary alliance. And Paika and Ramosi, again, the basic point is Paikas were not very happy in the way their tax-free land grant was taken away. Like technically the Jagirs were taken away. And the Ramosis, Chittur Singh, harsh revenue methods integrated. Total, there are 9. Can you remember these 9? They will never ask a chronology based questions because they are not happening 1 year. They are happening over a very big period of time and their starting points are also not clear. Sannyasi rebellion happens for 60 years. Mopla rebellion happens 22 times in different years. When I'm telling you, they will not ask you. They will not ask you. Can the mains question cannot be discuss the sannyasi rebellion? That is not the question. Mains question will be something like this. You are already equipped to answer a mains question from this area, which is this. Can you answer this? Then you can answer any prelims question out of that table or this basic 9 list. Can we take a break and come back and do 3 very important peasant rebellions? Because here I need to do with you 3 very important: Pabna, Deccan riots, and Indigo riots. Right? So it is what? 6:22. We come back at 6:32 and we'll take this story forward. Perfect. Great. I leave you with this. Sanjay, what is the issue? I can only see your last. Welcome back. See, one very important thing about this section which I'm going to cover and I'm covering. These are not given in books. And even in Spectrum, you will find very random points. So here the PPTs are made heavy for a very specific reason. For a very specific reason. Give me 1 sec. Okay. So PICA is because these men had free land grants as their salary. However, they were not given land grants. And when they were now under the British system, they had to pay taxes, which was not allowed or which was their privilege previously. Can we now go to peasant uprising? Yes? Only 9 out of whatever you have to discuss. Don't have to complicate it. Keep it simple. Only 9. Only 9. Ramosi, as I said, they did not like the British system of exploitation. Under Chittur Singh, they rebel. Later, the British integrate them, so they stop their movement itself. Now we go into the specific grievances of peasant movements. And it should technically not be a surprise to us that basically the peasants would rebel. Would rebel. You tell me, wouldn't the peasants rebel? The level of exploitation, the level of distress, poverty, problems which they were having, wouldn't the peasant rebel? Of course they will. So basically the reasons should be now on your fingertips. Exploitation, the problems related to what we call as land revenue, the zamindars are the ones who basically were becoming the face of exploitation. The planters, the moneylenders, all were destroying the peasant and the economy. There is deindustrialization. There is forced commercialization. If I wake you up at 1 in the night, you should be able to tell me this, that why would the peasant not rebel? Why would the peasant not rebel? The peasant would rebel because he was the moment or the site of all exploitation. And therefore, the peasant rebellion does not come as a surprise to us. Does not come as a surprise to us. However, the problem of the peasants was, as soon as the British introduced an act or a law for redressal, to redress their problems, they stopped the movement. Now here, the British acted like they were the hero. They were the hero. But if you remember, whatever is written in white is because of whom? Is because of the British. So basically, the British will act like that they are the Masihas, the saviors of the peasant. But all of this was created by British itself. British itself. It is all British colonial policy which produces all of this. And this is the problem of the way the peasant understands colonialism. According to him, the zamindar, the moneylender, and the indigo planter is the problem, but not the British. And that is why most of the rebellions will target three major groups. One will target zamindars, one will target the planters, and the other one is going to target the moneylenders. So if you understand the larger understanding of the concept here, we can go to the specificities. Right? So we know that the ruination of handicrafts leading to overcrowding on land, colonial economic policy, the colonial administrative and judicial system, which was biased and did not do anything for the peasant, along with the new land revenue system, meant that all of this compounds together to create anger and frustration. Who are planters? I'm going to come to that. Where have I talked about planters previously? Indigo, Nij, Rayati. So it should not come as a new word to you. The way the Nij system was based on planters, and they pushed it on the riots, into the riots. So the first major rebellion for the peasant is called the Rangpur Rebellion. And this was about squeezing out maximum amount of revenue out of the peasant. And the problem in Rangpur, which is in Bengal, was the Ijdar. What is the Ijdari system? Ijdari system or Ijdar? I've discussed this with you. What is Ijdar or Ijardar or Ijardar? Who introduced this system? Very good, Tanu. Very good. Perfect. Great. This is Hastings system. Hastings farming system was locally called as the Ijdar system. So basically, the peasants here will rebel against Debi Singh, a very corrupt, very oppressive Ijdar of Rangpur and Dinapur. He is what is called the highest bidder in Hastings model. And his intervention into Rangpur is going to be such that people will go into indebtedness, famines will happen, and very high tax rate in that sense. And Debi Singh practiced extreme harsh measures against the peasants. And when the peasants and zamindars took control of this whole sector, here the zamindars themselves came up with the peasants to fight with Debi Singh. So here he was so oppressive that peasants and zamindars came together, rebelled and took control of this area. And the main leader is Kena Sarkar. Now tell me one thing, who created Debi Singh? Again, I'm trying to make you understand something. Who created Debi Singh? The British. So Debi Singh is the problem or the British is the problem? The British. Now tell me, are the peasants realizing or understanding that? No. This is the problem. This is how I'm demonstrating to you that they don't understand what is actually happening. So, first, Rangpur. Thereafter, you have Kena Sarkar, and Debi Singh, the Ijardar or farming system highest bidder was the oppressive personality. Any issue, Rangpur? Very good. Now comes Indigo Revolt, very important, 5960. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. I'm again repeating what is indigo. If you remember, indigo is a crop, is a plant which grows leafy plant, very exploitative plant, in the sense that it takes away a lot of fertility in its process of growth. Neil, as it is called, it's very fertility centric, takes a lot of fertility away. In India, there were two systems which were there for indigo cultivation. One is called Nij, the other one is called the concept of Rayati. 5% of all production was Nij, 95% of all production was Rayati. Under Nij, the British planter, he grows this plant on the land he owns and produces the indigo. But this was a disadvantage, as all damage borne by the planter. So rather, they wanted the peasant to produce indigo against advance, and this will create what is called a debt trap, because the peasant will never be able to pay off the loan as fertility keeps on decreasing, and therefore the peasant was forced to grow indigo even when destructive or not suitable. Can we agree to this? Can we agree to this? Two basic systems. I've explained everything again, that the Nij system, the planter grows the plant on his own area and he will bear the problem of fertility going down over a period of time. This is a disadvantageous system for the British. So therefore they force the peasant or give the peasant an advance, saying that you make it on certain parts of your land, teen kathia as it was called, that you do it on 25% of your land and we will pay you advance and buy it on a fixed rate. However, the peasant will over a period of time will never be able to pay back the advance because there's a progressive decrease in fertility, so the progressive yield is going to go down, and this in turn will force the peasant to go into a destructive and non-suitable cultivation of indigo. Is this clear? Dadni system has nothing to do with this. Dadni is very specific to weavers. Is this clear? We will do that, Shivam, tomorrow. Can I move forward? Because I have to discuss what is going to be the response. Now, even when the peasant wanted to come out of the Rayati system, what is going to happen is that the peasant will be rejected coming out of the system. They will be beaten up, they will be tortured, and the different planters had what are called lathials, thugs, goons, gunde. And if you did not pay up, they used to literally force you to pay up or force you to cultivate. And it is against this exploitation that the peasants in the Bengal sector are going to rebel against the indigo planters, the UP, that whole Doab sector, UP, Bihar, Bengal. And these are called the indigo riots. Indigo riots, in which the peasants will take up arms and go after the planters. Now tell me one thing. This is an example of planter-centric response. Was the planter the problem or larger colonialism? It was the British. But for the peasant, the face was the planter. So indigo is an dye plant, high demand international market, grown mainly in Bengal and Bihar. Indigo planters were mostly British. As per contract, the tenant, and see, I have written them in most descriptive manner because individually there can be a question with regards to mains question. Indigo revolt, there can be an individual mains question. And as you can see, there's a lot to write in this area because of the Nij and the Rati system. So indigo planters forced to grow the people of India indigo. As per contract, the tenant was given a token amount as advance and were to required to grow a certain amount of indigo on the best land and sell the produce at a fixed price to them. Now, therefore, the price fixed was much below the prevalent market prices. The system took away freedom of the tenant to grow crops on his own land. Coercive methods such as flogging means torture, kidnapping of tenants, their family members, physical attacks, destruction of property was resorted to compel the cultivator to obey to the dictates of the planter. And if not, the way it was triggered was that in the Nadia district of Bengal, the revolt started. Two very important personalities are linked to this. Digambar Biswas and Bishnu Biswas. They will ask the cultivators to stop growing indigo. When the armed men will come, the villagers will take up arms and beat up these goons. And the similar type of rebellions against these gundes, these planters, is going to happen all across Bengal. At times, there will be violent clashes between the police, and social boycott of the cultivators by the cultivators also happened, which is that they said nobody is going to work in the house of the planter. Let him do what he wants to do. We will not work in his house. So they started to socially boycott the planter also. Outcome, you see, in 1830 or in 1860, there will be what is called the Indigo Commission, which will be established by the British, and there will be larger concepts of cultivators going beyond their own understanding of being labor, peasant, medium, whatever, landlords, everybody was affected. Therefore, the commission will say that the unity of the Hindu and Muslim peasant was already a very interesting feature in the story. But the Indigo Commission will say that the planters were actually following the wrong process and unlawful practices were being followed. And they will give the peasants some safeguards. And as soon as they will give the safeguards, the peasants will stop their rebellion. Missionaries and a lot of intellectuals such as Harish Chandra Mukherjee, Deen Bandhu Mitra, Neel Darpan talked about this quite a lot in the Bengali press. And therefore, because the British came under the pressure of this press, which it was getting both in England and in India, they will finally basically respond by abolishing the concept of Rayati. But This is the major issue. The peasant who saw the British respond, the British acted like a Masiha. But were the planters doing it individually? Yes or no? Were they doing it individually? No, it was all enabled by the British. And the British just came and said, yes, this is wrong, stop it. By that point of time, indigo had already become redundant. By 1860s, 62, 63 period, the Germans will develop a synthetic dye, which you use in Ujala. Ujala is not indigo. It's not the plant. It's a synthetic dye. And that synthetic dye is just a powder. You mix it with water, you get Neil. So by the time they were leaving, they had already destroyed the system itself. So what do you remember here? What do you remember here? Second, indigo riots. The Gambar and the other brother, Digambar and Vishnu. Vishnu Biswas against indigo planter exploitation. Rebellions across Bengal. However, ends with the British appointing Indigo Commission. Can we just remember this much for the examination? Will be able to identify it? Yes. Great. Now let's go to another district of Bengal, which is called Pabna. Pabna is a very interesting area in eastern Bengal. Neel Darpan written as a form of a play to tell how the indigo planters were exploiting the peasantry. Now in this again there are three leaders. You see I've already systematized it in such a way, and if you link all of the points which are written here, you will automatically get a 250 word answer. Though I'm still writing them down, they're not more than 250, 260 words, maximum 300 words. I have to just condense it. So Ishwar Chandra Roy, let's remember one name. The Indigo Commission abolished the Rayati system. By that point of time, Rayati itself, indigo itself has become redundant. So we'll remember Ishwar Chandra Roy. And here it is on the other side of the spectrum, landlords. So in our story, now we have the second type of story, which is third, Pabna, Ishwar Chandra Roy. And this is the landlord based exploitation, which became the reason. So you see the different tastes of rebellion we can see in Pabna in indigo riots, and you will see Deccan riots is going to be against the money lenders. So what are the details here? Very simply, you have Ishwar Chandra Roy, who starts a movement against the high demand of rent by landlords. They raise the rent by using dubious means of cultivating land, and the revolt is against the landlords. And you see, the irony of the story is the protesters pledge loyalty to the crown and call themselves the subjects of the queen. And they pleaded to the British that help us against these landlords. These landlords are exploiting us. We are the subjects of your empire. We are the subjects of the queen. The queen has a responsibility. But little did they know that the queen was the one who had sent the landlord. Dubious means shady. This is the basic point. They didn't get the larger picture itself. This is the problem. They are saying that we are the peasants of the queen, help us. And it is the queen who has sent the landlord. Who created the landlord? The queen. This is not it's not that the peasant is innocent. It's that the peasant is not politically conscious. This is what Gandhi will change. People talk about Gandhi in a lot of things. He's criticized, he's done that, this, that. But the beauty of Gandhi was that he made the peasant realize that actually it is not the zamindar who's the problem. It's the British who is the problem. But right now, they have no understanding itself. No understanding itself. So it is technically asking your oppressor that you help me because your agent is oppressing me. Are you now able to understand the larger problem here? That basically all of these movements are very, very limited because they don't understand what is happening only. So Pabna, they say, help us, we are the subjects. The landlords were empowered under permanent settlement by the queen only. The peasants' demand was very simple. Remove the zamindari excesses. Cessation means remove or reduce. Protesters did not demand structural changes or like the end of zamindari system. They just said that everything is perfect. The zamindars are a little bit problem. Permanent is perfect. We love it. They did not understand that the zamindar was empowered under the permanent settlement. They just want their immediate demand to be taken care of. So they are not saying that the permanent settlement is problem. No, the British is the perfect ruler. Perfect ruler. Never seen a person like Clive, down to earth. Hastings comes to my house, no issues. But it's zamindar, and this is zamindar, this Indian zamindar. He is the problem. He is the problem. So you white man, help me against this brown man. You see how beautifully the British had masked their presence in India. They had masked their presence in India that people thought it was not the British who's exploiting. It's the zamindar who's exploiting. This is called the master stroke. This is called the master stroke. British are British and British ruled in India for 200 years, not because they were dumb. They were very quick to show to the whole system that we are not the problem. It is you, the Indian, who is the problem. This is the problem. And this is why you will see the methods which the peasant employed was writing to the district collector, litigation, raising funds, refusal to pay, sometimes violence also. It started in the Yusufzai Pargana, first to organize something like an agrarian league. However, it will also end as soon as the British will introduce the Bengal Tenancy Act. They will introduce the Bengal Tenancy Act, which will do the drama of protection to the peasant. And thereafter, with the support of the government, the British was able to mediate between the zamindar and the peasant. But this conflict was created by the British only. So you will see that basically in our story again, Pabna is based on landlord-based exploitation. And it's about excesses. It will end with the Bengal Tenancy Act of 1885, and then the Pabna rebellion will stop. In the examination, will you be able to match the following and link Pabna with Bengal tenancy? Very good. Perfect. So the last is called Deccan Riots. It's called Deccan Riots, and I need to discuss Deccan Riots with you in the larger context of international market. Intellectuals who supported the Pabna rebellion: Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, S.N. Banerjee, R.C. Dutt, Dwarkanath Ganguly, And Hindu-Muslim unity was one of the most remarkable features. Small features if they ask you the features of the rebellion. Now, I have to discuss Deccan riots. Can I discuss Deccan riots with you? Because Deccan is the most interesting out of all of this because it's linked to the larger market of the world. Okay. Now, what is the context of Deccan riots? What is the context of Deccan riots? See, in India, or in the world, please pay attention. There are two suppliers of cotton. One is America and the other one is India. These are the two main suppliers. Two main suppliers of the world cotton trade, which is technically raw cotton. America has slavery, India has its cheap labor. But if you look at the quality, of the cotton, they have what is called long staple cotton, and we have what is called short staple cotton, which is that if you take the American cotton and you make it into a thread, it will not break very quickly. However, Indian cotton can be stretched, but it will start to break very quickly. So quality wise, American cotton is considered better. Now, between 1750 to 1860, 90% of the market was provided by American cotton and 10% was Indian. So who has the market share here? Which country has the market share here with regards to raw cotton? America. Now what is going to happen is that in 1860, Americans will fight amongst themselves. Americans will fight amongst themselves, which is the northern states and the southern states. And this will be over the issue of slavery, that should slavery be abolished? Everybody is following me over this. This is called the American Civil War. It's a civil war, American Civil War. Now, if I put the graphical representation of supply, this is cotton supply, and this is years. This is 1830, this is 1860, this is 1865, and this is 1870. And if this line is America and this line is India, the share of America at this point of time is very, very high, 90%. But if America is going to fight over slavery, and I will discuss it with you when we'll discuss world history, America is going to fight over slavery, that should slavery be abolished or not. What will happen to American War of Independence is different. That is 1776. This is them fighting within themselves. What is going to happen to the supply if America is going to fight within itself? Very good. Supply will reduce. Now, Indian supply was very less. Now, what is going to happen? Indian cotton demand will go up or down? Will go up. Very good. But what happens in 1865, is that the civil war is over, civil war ends, and the supply again goes back. And the supply again goes back. And if the American supply will be back, what is going to happen in India? Very good. It will start to crash. Now, basically, this period is called the cotton boom of India. There will be mills developed in India. There will be major demand, and basically because the price of cotton went very, very up, would a peasant, it's happening in America, would a peasant want to go to cotton or remain in grains? He would like to go to cotton. So peasants shift to cotton. Now in this period, everything is fine. But as soon as the civil war is over, Indian market crashes and cotton prices fall. So if this is going to happen, the peasant will become bankrupt, literally become bankrupt. Most of the industrialists became bankrupt. And what is going to happen is that basically in this period, a lot of money was borrowed by the peasant, from the moneylender. And now moneylender will ask for the money back. Now guess what is going to happen? The peasant does not have money. The moneylender is asking for too much money. What the peasants will do? Perfect. It is there where Deccan riots will happen. Are you getting the logic of this whole story? That basically the Deccan riots are linked to the larger supply and demand of cotton in the world. So Pune, Ahmedabad, the major area, 1875 slowly died down as the demands were met. Increase in rent paid by tenants to landlords. Price of cotton will drop very quickly after the American Civil War. Cotton fetched high prices during the war, led to peasants to cultivate cotton, but there will be a major slump after the war. Bad harvest in 1875. Increase in revenue by 50%. That British said that, okay, if you have more money, give us 50% more. The money lenders will ask for too much interest rate on the money which was borrowed, and the movement was now against money lenders. And the redressal will happen that once the riots will break out in 6 different districts of Pune and Ahmednagar rather, debt bonds will be seized. The debt bonds, meaning the written record, will be taken by the peasant and burnt. Social boycott of moneylenders. Small cultivators refuse to pay to the government. And the Pune and Bombay sector, social reformers will come to the aid of the peasant. And the M.G. Ranade and Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, we'll discuss Pune Sarvajanik Sabha later, which is an early nationalist body, supported the peasant struggle. It will fizz off once the Deccan Agricultural Relief Act is going to be passed, giving peasants legal remedies for the demands. So again, outcome is British legislation. So when we talk about the larger Deccan riots, let's add it to our list. Deccan riots, no specific person, but it was against money lenders due to cotton market crash after Civil War, and solution is going to be Deccan Agriculturalist Relief Act. Done, everyone? There should not be a problem. Easy. 4 major: Rangpur, Indigo, Pabna, Deccan. Can I get a yes, no? Are we all following the story? In the prelims examination, they can ask you to match these with their rebellions. That is it. I'm as it is making notes for you. Don't have to worry in that sense. So Deccan is also done. 3 major are done. Now I'll give you a short break and we do tribal movement after this. 9 plus 4, 13. You can remember? 13 you can remember, right? You want to do a small exercise with me? Want to revise? Yes? Great. So let's revise. Why not? Let's revise. I'm going to do standard Deccan riots, Velu Thampi. Let's add more. A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah. Deccan riots, Velu Thampi, the concept of Sannyasi rebellion, Pabna, thereafter let's add one generic one, Vellore mutiny, and not Rangpur. Yeah, Rangpur we can add. Rangpur. So you have to match the following. You have to match Devi Singh, customary Jagir rights taken away, mobility laws, first mutiny of India against landlords and against money lenders. Come on. Give me the code. Don't have to write A, B, C, D. Just give me the sequence. Okay. Sequence. Six, two, 6, 2, 3, 5, 4, 1. A, B, C, D, E, F. 6, 2, 3, 5, 4, 1. Agree? Or you are saying to me F, B, C, E, D, A. Okay, let us see. Deccan riots will be against moneylenders. Veluthampi is going to be B. Sannyasi, mobility rights. Pabna against landlords. Vellore mutiny, first mutiny in India. Rangpur is going to be Devi Singh. Done? Any issue? Are you able to now use the given information? Agreed? Then perfect. So it is what? It is 7:20, a small breather to you. 7:25 we come back and we discuss tribal movement. Right? Okay. See you. Yes, yes, yes. Kumaran, yes, yes. It is almost 7:26. It is 7:27. Ah, very good. Now, 3 minutes. I owe it to you. What do you owe me? So let's use the British logic. I extended the break for your Masiha concept that I, the oppressor, did a favor on you, and now you owe me 3 minutes. Moral justification of rule? Well, I thought, why not give 3 minutes extra? Right? So, perfect. Names of the peasant rebellions: Rangpur, Pabna, Deccan, and you have Indigo. Where will you get justice? Well, this is not democracy. No justice at all. No justice at all. You go to any institution, it will be biased towards me only. This is colonialism for you. Yeah, only 4 peasant movements. The most important 4. Now, tribal movement. You can resist, but you don't understand. You don't understand that it is a branch of and not the core. So technically we revise the larger concept. So this is what the British actually did, which is to oppress, create branches, but actually not be the one who was in front of the oppression. Therefore, people did not understand it. Ajay, I know that. But I've tweaked that line in such a way that it becomes a part of the larger subsidiary lines concept, because Velutampi, there was an aspect related to their customary rights. That's why I used the word customary rights. Okay. And that was the catch there. So you don't have to overthink. That's the only point. Okay. Indigo is somehow same. No, Champaran is totally different. Champaran is very different movement. Can I move to tribal? Right. Now, when we talk about tribal, see, if you look at tribal concept, if you look at how tribals operate, if there is a forest, for example, if there's a forest, do the tribals own the forest? We will discuss Champaran when we'll discuss about Gandhi, and we'll discuss Tebhaga when we'll discuss 1945. So, very simply, tribals don't own the forest. Tribals have no concept of private property. They do not own the forest. They are rather part of the forest ecosystem, and they're indebted to nature. Basically, they use nature to survive, but there's no concept that we own this forest. Now, basically, the British, what they will do is they will introduce the concept of colonial forest policy. And under colonial forest policy, the concept was that the different forest zones of India are part of the British Empire. Therefore, the British owned the forest land. And therefore, they introduced these concepts of such as reserve forest, forest laws, and this will, what will it will do is it will basically displace the forest tribals, and they will now be taxed. They will now be taxed. So now the problem is that the anger will start to rise. Nidhi, I will discuss that with you tomorrow. The difference between rebellion, revolt, mutiny, I will discuss that with you when we'll discuss 1857. Now, if that was not enough, the second thing which the British did was they deforested a lot of land. Therefore, there was what is called increasing agrarian land or agricultural land. If agriculture is going to be there in colonial India, what two agents will automatically prop up? Very good. So zamindars and money lenders will now start to emerge and exploit the tribals. So basically, the problem is that the tribals are either displaced or they are what we call as exploited as tenants, laborer, or agricultural labor. So very simply, tribal movements is when these tribes lose patience and they go after the either the agent, which is zamindar, or the moneylender. But in tribal movements, the Santhal and the Birsa Munda, the Munda rebellion, were a little bit more sophisticated because they knew that it was not the zamindar who's the problem, but it's actually the British who is the problem. And this is why Bhagwan Birsa Munda is considered very, very important, because he understood for the first time that it was not the agent who was the problem, but it was the British. So when we talk about British land policy or British concept itself, land revenue settlements were extended. These are the reasons. Land revenue settlement was introduced into the tribal areas. With increasing demand of wood, the different forests in India were cut down. Through the Forest Acts and forest policy, previously acres of forests open to everyone were now declared reserve forest, nobody can enter. The Christian missionaries started to enter into tribal areas to convert them to Christianity. Moneylenders, traders, oppression, extortion, everything was done with the tribals. And therefore, it is not a coincidence that they will rebel. Now, what I've done for you is very simply, I've made the boxes already. which is I have made the boxes for both tribal movements in mainland India and what we call as the tribal movements in the frontier region or northeastern sector. I've already made it for you, so you don't have to go through this process. So what you just have to do is basically just print this or keep it with you, and you will always have this with you. I knew that there was a lot of data in this area. That is why I've brought it down itself. We will discuss the important ones, but I've brought all of this, I've just condensed it into one place so that you don't have to run. Where I knew that it is too much to manage, I've done it. In that place, it's only 9 and 4. Here, we have made sure, or I've made sure that basically your 90% of the work is done. Here again, period doesn't matter. The period does not matter, but I've added them as it is. So I hope that you can use this for your preparation generally. You can do that? Perfect. So let's just once go through them and you see causes and you see the concept. So for example, you have the Paharia rebellion, Rajmahal Hills, which is technically West Bengal. And it was about British expansion into their own lands. Then you have the Chowar uprising, Midnapur and Bankura, rise of demands and economic deprivation by the British. So region means location. Location. Thereafter you have the coal. We will do the most important separately. So coal uprising, Chota Nagpur Plateau, expansion of the British rule and transfer of land to the outsiders. Karwar, again Bihar, revenue settlements. So I hope that you can realize that the causes are nothing but British standard policy. Right? So you don't have to learn the causes separately, but they are basically the standard concept itself. So you have coal, Paharia, you have Karwar, then you have Santhal, which is Jharkhand, 1855-56, the practice of zamindars and moneylenders, which was a problem. We will discuss this in detail. Then you have the Naikada movement, oppression of the British and caste Hindus, basically the new community which entered started to oppress the tribals itself, MP and Gujarat. Ho uprising led by Raja Parhat. Singhbhum, Chota Nagpur Plateau, occupation of Singhbhum by the British. Now we'll discuss Munda uprising, very important, Chota Nagpur Plateau, feudal zamindari exposure, moneylenders and forest contractors. Thereafter, Kondh, Tamil Nadu to Bengal, this whole sector from Orissa, and a very important person, Chakra Bisoi. He was the one who went after the customs and the new taxes which came. Kondora, Vishakhapatnam sector, again no specific, but it will be economic policy. Bhil, known, quite known. Region Western Ghats, and it is again British rule to form Bhil Raj, and we'll discuss Bhil. It is interesting. You don't have to go to any book. This is actually even more comprehensive than any book. Just have to look at this section. Then Bhuya Zhuang rebellion, Orissa, installation of British protege to the throne. Basically, the British intervened in the succession of King. Koya, Eastern Godavari, Andhra Pradesh, operation of the police, moneylenders, regulation of the forest areas. Bastar, new feudal and forest levies. Feudal means what we call as excess cesses and illegal taxes. You don't need to learn I'm not even asking you to learn all of them. I'm just asking you to just look at them from time to time. There's no one who can learn so many of them. The ones which are important, I will discuss with you. Tara Bhagat, again, outside influence and the pushing of Hindu culture into it. Rampa, British interference. But the ones which I'm going to discuss with you right now are the ones which you will remember. Can you do that? I have made these boxes for you. You just have to keep it with you. So from the Ahom to the Khasi to the Singpo to the Kukis to Tripura to Manipur, I'm not asking you to learn all of them. It's just that I want you to just have this information with you. I will concentrate on certain rebellions which are important for the examination. Can we do that? Irrespective of all these lists, this is what you need to do. From time to time, just learn 1 2 1 2 1 2. That is more than enough. If you will sit with this, this will take you 8 hours. It took me 6 hours. So basically, it is something which you have to collate from different sources. Just keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Right? Can we concentrate on some of them and discuss the characteristics from where the questions come and what are called the concept of tribal policy? Great. So you have the coal uprising, 1831. Chota Nagpur Plateau itself is a very important sector. That Jharkhand, Orissa, that Chhattisgarh sector, very important. Leader is Budo Bhagat. Rebels against the fact that moneylenders and landlords were entering. But the British retaliation was extremely, extremely harsh, and thousands of coals will die. So here, Chota Nagpur, Budo Bhagat. Now comes Santhal. Santhal uprising is the most interesting along with Birsa Munda, which is that it is for the first time that the British, just before revolt of 1857, will lose control of a whole area itself. The two leaders, Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu, mobilized 10,000 Santals and declared rebellion against the British colonists. It was all about economic exploitation, money lenders and the protectors and the contractors of the British. Bhagalpur, Rajmahal Hills complex, again that Bihar and West Bengal sector. Again, the Santals will take up arms. The British government will go after the Santals, but the British government actually was caught by surprise in this rebellion. And that is why the Santals will have at least 2 to 3 battles in which they will win. So initially a small contingent was sent to suppress the rebellion, and this revolt will not stop because of that contingent. Law and order situation got out of hand in this whole sector. And thereafter, the British will send the army to help the Zamindars and the Nawab of Murshidabad to control it. But once the army got involved with their cannons and their muskets and their modern weaponry, unfortunately, by just 1 year before the 1857, these two celebrated leaders were martyred. But the Santals, in a way, gave a major hope to the people of India that the British can be defeated. However, the British went to overkill, which is send the army itself. So for the purpose of the examination, you can remember the two leaders' name, and you can remember that the Santals got initial success against the British. Yes? Yes, Nitesh, for sure. Okay, perfect. Now the most important, or the one of the most celebrated of all Jharkhand movements, which is the Munda uprising or the Uluglan uprising. Now the Munda uprising, one of the most celebrated out of all of them, was led by Bhagwan Birsa Munda, and it was the region south of Ranchi that by 1899-1900 the British had fully lost control. But Birsa Munda is a very different type of personality, because he was able to mobilize the people in such a way that the Mundas will become a major problem for the British for close to 2 to 3 years. But the more interesting aspect is how he mobilized the people, because he showed to the people that he was much larger than life figure. There are stories that he was shot with the bullet, but the bullet did not hit him. And he created a very important messianic, heroic personality which he commanded, which led to the people actually rallying against him, with him. So he is the one who established Munda Raj, the Munda rule in this area. Did not like the way the tribal lands were getting occupied, the way the moneylenders and zamindars were ill-treating the Mundas, and therefore he rose against these new type of exploitation. Started the revolt in Chota Nagpur region, attacked the missionaries and police stations. However, as always, against modern machinery, the tribal rebellions were never obviously going to stand. But these two movements actually showed for the first time that people were now understanding the nitty-gritty of colonialism. By 1857, people were understanding, okay, it is not just this, it is something more. Clear, everyone? We can remember this much? Very good. This Chwar uprising recently was in the news because it was called the freedom struggle of Jangal Mahal. This word was used in the newspaper, and that is why it becomes important. Here, displaced Zamindar Durjan Singh actually rallied the tribals behind him and created literal havoc in again the Chota Nagpur sector. And recently, Durjan Singh's name was seen in the newspaper. That is why I'm doing this, because it was highlighted by the government of India. So just remember, if in the match the following question, Chwar is Durjan Singh. Now this is for your reference. As I said, please, it is for your reference. You use it as much as you want to. I have to now do something from which the questions come. Can I discuss that area with you? Can we do that? Everybody is following me. Last topic, which is like this. After this, from tomorrow, nothing at all. It's going to become much easier. Okay. Now, when we talk about the tribal movements, there can be a question like this. What were the characteristics of the tribal movements in India? No, this will not be the last lecture of modern history. Come on. 1857 is the last lecture on Company Raj. From Monday, we move into nationalism. Tribal movement in India. I've reached 1857. 100 more years I have to, 90 more years I have to go with you. What were the characteristics of tribal movement in India? And this is a very realistic question which can come. Be it 250 words or be it 150 words. What I've done is that rather I've put in the points which need to go into this discussion. So because you will not find it in a random, it's not there in Bipin Chandra. I've just put in the basic characteristics, and there's a corollary question. There's a question which is vis-a-vis this, a corollary or what are the weaknesses of the tribal movement in India? Will we be able to answer these questions if I share the points with you? If I share the points with you, we can? Okay, perfect. Perfect. So let us discuss these points. First is the fact that you have a very localized character, and basically as much as it is a characteristic, it is also a weakness, which is that tribals were never connected with each other. And this is a very important point, that basically the connection between the tribals itself was very limited because the tribal identity became a problem. So though they were very united against the British, they were not united together. And this becomes a problem. This becomes a problem as much as they are using tribal ethnic identities as a binding force. This identity is being used to fight the outsiders and the enemies, but this is also going to isolate them. So the tribal economy was affected. The anger was against moneylenders and traders, but they also recognized that they were agents of colonial government. That is why they went after them. But localized character is something which is very, very important and interesting. Which is that the tribal movements characteristics are strength and weakness at the same point of time. So is there any problem in the following points? Binding force is tribal identity, recognize outsiders vis-a-vis that identity itself, and lenders and traders are the ones who they go after. Now, the common cause is basically the destruction of socio-economic framework. And for the examination, just write these lines in the examination. It will become a 250-word answer. Don't have to worry. I've made this section as easy as possible because it is one of the most heaviest in any book. So their basic understanding is that socio-economic framework was such that tribal societies were leading to problematic aspects of rule. Now, the other important aspect is that they were like messianic figures. This is also a good feature, which is that people are ready to rally behind personalities. But that also meant that if the personalities were not there, the movement started to fizz out. So the godlike figure of Birsa Munda, Bhagwan Birsa Munda, is something which made him larger than life. But this will also be a problem because once the British get caught of these personalities, the movement is not able to survive in its own. They argued and they did. They argued and claimed to have magical powers. For example, that enemy bullets will not work against them. And filled with hope, the tribal masses tended to follow these important figures. However, at the end of the day, localized, isolated, lacked the feeling of nationalism. That's a separate issue altogether. And because they were violent, the army was used quite a lot against them. And the British were able to therefore destabilize the tribal economy itself. So are you able to understand the basic points? Are you able to understand the basic points? The simple point is that they have figures which are larger than life, very important, but they are localized. If these figures are somehow eliminated by the British, that in turn leads to the fizzing out of the movement. Their tribal identities binds them together. Their tribal identity is what binds them together. However, that identity is also limiting. So the tribals were enthusiastically becoming part of the resistance, but their enthusiasm and their binding force was the problem itself. Can we move to then the problems which were now going to occur in the larger weaknesses? See, very simple, very simple. I'll read all the points and then we'll bring it together. I'll try to make this contextualized. See, the Bhils will rise, the Kols will rise. However, they will not interact with each other because the Bhils see their identity separate to the Kols. The enthusiasm is not the problem. The problem is that though they joined the movement very enthusiastically, the British knew how to tackle it. Their ethnic identity is equally a binder but a separator also. Are you not getting this point? The Bhils rebel, but they were localized. They were not ready to get linked up with the Kols because they're saying that the Kols are different. This localized nature of rebellion meant that the British could target each one of them separately. And therefore, the ethnicity means cultural identity. It's not even the tribal identity, it's cultural identity. This separation of identity is something which is a strength because it rallies people inside, but is also a weakness outside. Are you able to get this point? Come on. Again, simple point. Acha, I'll tell you one thing. We'll take a very simple example. China and Japan both hate the British, but both are targeting the British, but both don't come together because their identities are different. Are you getting my point? Same way, the British can target each of them separately, but once they came together, there was no chance. Same way, two different tribes are fighting with the British, but their internal patriotism is binding them and the British, but that is also becoming an hindrance in bringing all of them together. Did the tribals have a chance separately? No. But did they have a chance to come together? You tell me. If they all came together, would there have been a better chance to actually take away the power of the British from that area? Yes. But that is not happening. Right? So, simple point that the tribal identity, ethnic ties are a binding force, but also one of the weaknesses in the larger perspective. Then one important leader means that if the British is able to somehow take out that leader, the leadership fails thereafter. And that is the major issue, that the tribals will not be able to take their movement forward once the British suppress or totally put repression on them. Are you getting my point? That if there's one personality, you just need to target that personality. Once that personality is eliminated, then the movement fizzes out. These 2 points clear, then I go to the next set. Now, the complete disruption of the old agrarian order of the tribal communities was a common factor that all of it was the fact that their old order was destroyed. The uprising was broad-based within the tribals. However, the entire population sometimes was not able to come together in the larger perspective. So whilst one tribal community comes together, they are not able to bring all the tribals together. So all bheels rise, but not the coals rise. And because they are spontaneous in nature, there's no structure, there's no plan. Okay, I burnt all the police stations. Now what? I burnt all the police stations. I burnt all the buildings with the British own in this area. Now what? You tell me. The British will get time to recoup and they will just come after you. So because there is no plan, it is spontaneous. In the larger perspective, nothing can be done only. Getting my point? That the British will always get time to take revenge. And this is something which the British always had. So the characteristics itself reflect the problematic nature of the tribal rebellions. They attacked outsiders, expelled them from the villages. The biggest issue between the tribals and the British was unequal arms. The bows and arrows and the very primitive weapons of the tribals was nothing to the modern weapons. This is the basic point. That they were using guns, cannons, machine guns, whilst the mighty and the brave tribals were fighting with spears and arrows. And this is again a major issue in that self. So basically, when we talk about the basic characteristics, there is a major problem. The major problem is that they have important personalities, what is called leading the movement, but that is also a problem in itself. They have ethnic ties binding them together, and they have primitive weapons, go against the outsider, problematic planning, or what we call as spontaneous, and localized in nature. And the British repression was always excessive. Can we all agree to these following characteristics? Yes? Yes, Shalu, perfect. Now, if we talk about the weaknesses, we already know them. That though these movements were very powerful in their region and were able to shake the British government, localized isolated revolts, and did not get support from freedom struggle itself, even the nationalists stay away from it. And due to this, they were not able to sustain for a long time. Go against outsider means zamindars, moneylenders, that is one of the nature. They were geographically scattered, yes, and there was no attempt to link them up also. Then most of the movements arose against local grievances. And therefore, the demands were mostly local demands. And if it is local demands, it means that there is nothing to connect all the uprisings. The conservative and traditionalist outlook, which is that what after the rebellion? What after that? The simplest of simplest points is that there is no long-term vision. There is no long-term vision. And more than that, some of them got easily satisfied if the British agreed with the demands. Agreed with the demands. Not revolutionary in ideology, local demands. They were not providing alternative solution to the public, so there was no public support. And warfare itself is extremely primitive. We know that the characteristics technically exhibit the problems. Now, before I go to remedial measures, because you don't have to learn this, please listen to me what has happened today. What is left in this discussion is just how the British created a totally new regime in how they dealt with the tribals. However, today's discussion creates a very important foundation. And the foundation is that somehow when people talk about, for example, the 1857 revolt, which we will do tomorrow, they talk about it in isolation. That one random day somebody rose and did a rebellion or a mutiny called the 1857 rebellion. But what this whole discussion teaches us is that tomorrow when I talk to you about the revolt of 1857, please understand this point, and this is why the whole discussion is structured like this, is because this moment in history is not an isolated event. Rather, it is the culmination of a long process of resistance. Please understand this point, that the revolt of 1857 is the culmination of a long tradition of resistance. As much as they have their weaknesses, this resistance is something which strengthened the revolt of 1857. Because when you will read or when you will study revolt of 1857, people just talk about one thing. What was the reason for the revolt of 1857? Grease cartridge, Sepoy mutiny, grease cartridge, rifle, cartridge, frustration, cartridge, indigo planters, though there are no connection. One thing, if you ask a person on the road, why did revolt of 1857 happen? He will say grease cartridge. Can we agree to this? Everybody is going to talk about how the grease cartridge was the reason. But the irony of the matter is that the British would like you to believe that it was grease cartridge. Because this is called trivialization of the mutiny or the revolt or the rebellion. Trivialization means is they want to make it small. We didn't rebel because we didn't have resistance. We didn't rebel because of your exploitation. We didn't rebel because of subsidiary alliance. We didn't rebel because of doctrine of lapse. We didn't rebel because you were very, very corrupt. We didn't rebel because of destruction of everything. We didn't rebel because of long-term economic, social, military or anything. We rebelled because you gave us one cartridge and we were not ready to chew the wrapper off. हमें सब कुछ पसंद था. We loved colonialism, but that cartridge was the problem. If you didn't give us that cartridge, we were totally perfect. We would not have rebelled only. This is what is called British-centric historiography or British-centric history writing. And there's a person called J.W.K. The first history of the revolt of 1857 was written by J.W.K. He's a British officer and will be completed. The book will be completed by a person called Malleson. Malleson and K it is called. They would argue that the only reason it happened was because the people's religious sentiments were hurt because of the grease cartridge. But the grease cartridge is just 1% of the story. That 1% was made into 70% by the British, but the point of the matter is, if you actually talk just about grease cartridge, you are technically just demeaning the whole movement. I'll tell you what is grease cartridge. Pig and cow skin, chew it off, and then put it into the gun. I will show you everything. Immediate cause, whatever cause. If you are talking about grease cartridge, then the British is succeeding. The simple point, every NCERT will talk about, because NCERTs are written for children. Children don't understand deindustrialization nuance. You are now an UPSC aspirant, so you need to go to the much bigger aspect here as a nuanced understanding. Revolt of 1857 is not something which fell out of the sky. One day randomly people woke up, revolt karte hain. No. The revolt of 1857 is a culmination of a long drawn process of grueling, bloody and very, very horrific resistance against the British. Revolt does not happen because of one small cartridge. It happens because of colonialism in India. It happens because you were here. And that is why the revolt of 1857 is seen as a major turning point in Indian history. Because that was one moment when we realized that the problem is not these agents and subcontractors and these people. The problem is the British. So, tomorrow when I start the discussion, we will start at this basic note. What were the causes of the revolt of 1857? That is the first discussion we have. We will also have a discussion on theaters. Theaters in the sense that we'll talk about Delhi, how Delhi fell, how Delhi was taken back, the DFF, Delhi Field Force. We'll talk about Kanpur, the best example of violence beyond exception. We'll talk about Lucknow. We'll talk about Awadh. We'll talk about the other smaller theaters. The question is most probably going to be what were the causes of the revolt of 1857? But revolt of 1857 changed everything. The British got a rude shock. But all of this I'm done with you, this whole grueling process of the past 3 hours, is to just prove to you, to show to you that revolt of 1857 is not a random moment. It's a culmination of a long drawn, very, very slow process of rebellion. V.D. Savarkar said that it is the first war of independence. Firstly, V.D. Savarkar never used the word first. He called it the War of Independence. I have the original copy of that text. He never calls it first. That is again a later projection. But I will discuss with you why we don't call it a moment of independence. what is the real reason, or what is the real nature of revolt of 1857? Why don't we call it the genesis of the national movement? And this is all the discussion which we do in that sense. So basically, today's class was about creating an image. If I ask you that was there resistance before 1857, what is the answer to that question? Yes. Perfect. So now just as a form of, don't have to learn any of this. This is do not learn. Just because you will learn polity and you will actually, no, Prashant, ironically, all of my classes lead to 1857. These all 9 classes technically create pillar by pillar the reasons for the revolt of 1857. Pillar by pillar. Advent, expansion, doctrine of lapse, subsidiary alliance, economic policy, education policy, social intervention. Bring all of them together, and then you put the main pillar of resistance. You have the foundation of the revolt of 1857. There's a logic to the way I am put in the modules, because teaching revolt of 1857 without understanding how British actually were indoctrinating us, how they created the middle class intelligentsia, how they were doing a drama, how there was an ulterior motive to the social religious reform movement, how everything is larger than life connected to the larger concept of British exploitation. You cannot appreciate this moment in Indian history. Because just reading randomly political causes, military causes, social, no. 1857 changed everything, because now the East India Company was considered to be incompetent to hold onto an empire like India. And now the British Parliament will intervene and take power. And will take power. Getting my point? This is the thought process we take tomorrow. This is what we discuss tomorrow. And we thereafter move into nationalism from Monday. So just because you do, what are the 2 schedules which deal with tribals in Indian Constitution? Very good. 5th and 6th. So this discussion you do not have to learn. This is just to show you how the British actually created, bit by bit, the concept of 5th and 6th schedule. So don't have to learn, just 2 minutes. So once the British dealt with the tribals, they wanted to administer the tribal areas in a different way. So they adopted a very simple policy: don't interfere and just administer them with limited power and separately. And the first manifestation of this act is going to be in Government of India Act 1870, wherein the Governor General got the power to approve laws which was specific to a special area concept. That how only the governor and the president can actually act in what are called scheduled areas. The concept of special area comes into the concept. That for the tribal areas itself, there has to be a separate mechanism for regulation. There is now the Scheduled District Act of 1874, which for the first time uses the concept of scheduled district. So I'm actually giving you the genesis of this concept, the concept of scheduled areas and scheduled districts, which is that local governments were now being declared as scheduled districts, or declaring certain areas scheduled areas. That is why Schedule 5th and 6th. This scheduled district concept is British concept, that within an area keep the tribal area aside. Again, don't have to learn it, just understand why the British wanted to do it. Under Government of India Act 1919, which we'll discuss separately, Montagu-Chelmsford, they now also talk about a new word, backward tracts. And they classify into 2 types: wholly excluded, modified excluded, which is areas where there is no power of the central and the provincial government, wholly excluded. But if the modified areas or modified excluded areas where the Governor General can play with it. So this is the policy which the British now started to say, which is that let the tribals manage themselves in certain areas and we will just manage the outer ring of that area. So the British, unlike any other, by Government of India Act area, they were now Government of India Act 1935, they were creating excluded, scheduled, partially excluded areas, therefore creating like a ring. The outer area they administer very cautiously, inner area is left to the tribals itself. This is a policy which the constitution also embodies to some level, but this is basically the British way of handling with care. Handling with care. And this is the last point I want to make for today. So thank you so much. I hope you are able to understand why we did what we did and what is the point of all this. The point of all this is to come to this point tomorrow. That how do I explain to you the revolt of 1857? Tomorrow I will not struggle to make you understand the gravity of economic exploitation, the gravity of social intervention, the problems which the British produced in the social category. You will rather automatically be able to see the larger picture. The larger picture, the 1857 revolt, 10,000 Britishers were dead. That is a very big number. And this was not taken as a joke by the British. And therefore, they will thereafter change the whole structure itself and now become even more controlling. They wanted to now understand the Indian society. That is why census, understand how many religions. And they will also realize one thing, that the most important feature of the revolt of 1857 was that Hindus and Muslims were together. And herein lies the genesis of the concept. Divide them as much as you can, but the best way to divide them is along religious lines. Along religious lines. And once you are able to do that, you can now divide this country and rule them for another 80 years. Getting my point? Social religious, social reform, same thing. Perfect. So if you don't have a question, thank you so much. Thank you for being very, very patient for these two modules. You have been extremely patient. The last two, these two were the most heaviest of all of them. And I hope that now you don't fear these areas, but at least you have the way to tackle these areas in that sense. We will thereafter on tomorrow we'll start 1857. We enter into what we call as the nationalistic phase on Monday. Right? I'm doing it, Saifuddin. Perfect. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Leaving you early. Very heavy. So thank you. Infallible. No, Shalu, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. Yes, Abhishek, if you want to. Yes, Abhishek, if you want to. Grease cartridge was breaking point of long-term suppression. Yes, Devansh, you can argue that. See, for me, grease cartridge are a minor footnote in the story. There were much more systemic issues in the military than actually grease cartridge. Too much discrimination, no bhatta, no allowance. They were taking away their power. The standardization of army was happening. There is much more to the story than actually just grease cartridge. Just grease cartridge. It's a trigger, nothing more. Yes, rattled. The British Foundation was rattled in 1857. Well, Umera, thank you so much for that. No, Akshay, it will be, the problem with revolt of 1857 is it will be both army and mutiny. It will start as a mutiny, become a rebellion, but it has again limited geography in that sense. Shalu, just remember that Tagore is going to talk about Vedas being very, very sacred. That's it. It is cases and he will take it away. Yeah. So this is the basic point. You are now able to connect all the dots. Everything I've done is technically has a purpose. All come to this basic point. Because people tend to think that revolt of 1857 is random. No, no, no. It is actually a culmination of a process. It's like a pressure cooker. Building, 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 and 1857 is one off in that sense. Deccan means that whole sector from the Maharashtra to the Odisha sector. We will discuss 1857 tomorrow. Okay, perfect. So the SMEs are there for the next half an hour. I'll see you tomorrow, same time. Thank you. Take care. Good night.